Today we are going to be talking about the dynamics node inside of Mesh. It is one of the most useful and interesting node inside of Mesh and one of my personal favorite. So let's quickly get into it and see how we can use this node. So I'm going to start off by taking a default primitive. Let's maybe take a sphere, and we can quickly go to the Mesh menu and click on Mesh. All right. And we've already talked about Mesh and a lot of other nodes as well. So I'm gonna quickly get into setting this up. So let's take maybe a grid. All right, this looks quite good. And let's say if we are creating a scene with a lot of marbles, and these are our marbles, and what we can do with this is if we want to collide this inside, let's say we have a ground or a floor in our scene and we want to collide a lot of marbles inside of our scene. So what we can do is we can really add our enemy. Before Mesh, what we had to do was we can simply go to Fx and we had to use the active rigid body or passive rigid body, which was really not that great or useful when it comes to creating RBD simulation. Or if you can also use the bullet dynamics, which was again a little bit better than the legacy rigid body, but it was not that accurate, or really sometimes it was really hard to get a perfect simulation inside of bullets. So it was kind of a knacking thing. But after the Mesh dynamic, everything changed. So it is a bit easier for us to create RBD simulation inside of Maya now by using this. So let's quickly see how we can do that. So I'm going to go back to Mesh. So we have a distribute node. I'm going to keep it to distribute. We don't want anything else. And here you'll find the dynamics node. So click on dynamics and there you go. So what is dynamics? Anything that we don't have an influence on or anything that moves on its own. That is our dynamics node. So basically giving a dynamic life to this, you'll have all sorts of options like friction, bounciness, damping, and so on. Once you've added the dynamics node, if you play this, the animation will be automatically applied to your entire scene. So I'm just gonna increase the timeline to maybe like 350, and just so we have more room to play around with. And there you go. So let's say if you have a scene and again the marbles are falling down on the ground, and if it's too smooth or if it's less bouncy, you want to create more bounciness or something, you can increase the amount of bounciness and just hit play. And there you go. You'll notice that we have a little bit more bounciness. But let's say if you want to create more friction out of this, we can increase the amount of friction and it'll be less likely for them to pretty much slip away. And now you'll notice that we have something like this. So there are a lot of ways to controlling your entire dynamic simulation. That is a good thing. So we have the mass value here, which is pretty much very important when it comes to creating RBD simulation. Mass determines how much heavy the weight of your object is. So if I lower this, it will be somewhere like a feather or so. We have to go a little lighter than that for a feather, maybe like 0.010, but you get the idea. But if you have a mass value of maybe like a 10, then you probably have a concrete ball or something like that. So mass decides how much weight your object carries and so on. All right, and then we have a lot of different options that we are going to be covering in the future. This is just to get you the idea of what dynamics is. Then we have the PPA, which is our per point adjustment, and we also have the access to add constraints, which is pretty much amazing, which we are going to be seeing in our future videos. But nevertheless, you'll notice that we have this invisible ground which collides on its own. Let's see how we can control this first. So you'll notice that in our outliner we have this bullet solver. If I click on this, you'll notice that we have something called as the ground, which you'll get if you're creating something like a end cloth or end particle. You get a default ground plane as well with the nucleus, and so you get the same kind of ground plane in here as well. You'll notice the position has been set to -20 by default. You can change it to having a 0 or maybe like -5 and so on. And if you play this now, you have pretty much changed your ground, and there you go. All right, so this is how you can control this. And again, you have a friction for a ground and your pretty much plane as well, and you can create more friction out of this. Let's say you want to have more smoother looking dynamics. You also have access to creating internal frame rates, like you have the similar option like this inside of your bullet dynamics as well, and you also have the option to pretty much control your gravity as well. So you have the options of creating more fields from your own fields and solver. Let's say if you're adding more turbulence and so on, which we are going to be seeing in a while. But let's get back to the basic first. So you have a ground plane. You can control your ground plane. You can increase the bounciness. You can increase the damping value, and so on and so on. All right, so let's quickly take a scene where we can create a lot of different things by using our collider and so on. So I'm gonna just take a new scene, and let's start off with a simple cube. Let's go to mesh, and let's click on mesh, and let's maybe take a simple grid, and we're going to create a lot of height. And let's turn on our wireframe just so we can see. Let's maybe take somewhere around 8, and we'll put 2 and 2 in here, and just increase this to about maybe like 7. Well, let's have a little bit gap in them, 7.1, or maybe having 2.1 in here and 2.1 in here as well. All right, so that creates an equal gap, and maybe we can have like 4 in here. Oh, sorry, I think on the x-axis one. Let's have a 4. Yeah, and there you go. I think 3 is quite good. If you want to have, again, let's keep a little space in there. All right, seems good. And let's quickly create something to control this. So I'm going to go back to mesh, and let's create a dynamic node, and we have the ground plane. So I'm just going to quickly change the ground plane. And let's say if you don't want to control this, like we can pretty much change this entire ground plane to set up here, like exactly like here. So if I play this, you'll notice that we have the whole thing. But let's say you want to create your own personal ground, which you can pretty much control on your own. So we can turn this off. We don't longer need it. So you'll notice that the cubes are falling into the deep space. I can take my own plane in here. Let's scale this up. And we don't need actually that many subdivisions, so I'm going to make this just 1 by 1. And let's go to our front view and hit 4. Let's quickly lower this down, and I just want to keep a small amount of distance, something like this. And there you go. So I can actually go here and I can call this ground. All right, so let's make this ground our collision floor. So I'm going to go to mesh, and in the dynamics tab, actually in our bullet solver, we have the collider object. I'm going to middle mouse click on the ground and drop it on top of our collision object. And if I play this now, you'll notice that we have a very nice looking cube falling. All right, so the reason we have actually created this so that we can create a collision with another object as well. So let's quickly add a third object, but before that, you'll notice that our cubes, since our cube are pretty much colliding, you'll have something that looks like this. All right, so we have to create more friction between them, so we can add some more friction on our ground. Maybe a value of 0.6, but the ground doesn't seems to be an issue. And I'm also going to reduce the bounciness to maybe like 0.100. All right, as I said, the ground doesn't seem to be the issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to mesh, and in our mesh dynamics, I'm going to increase more friction on the cube. So let's maybe take a 1 friction, and let's go back and play this again. Seems good. I can maybe add some more friction here, and there you go. Let's create a little bit less bounciness. Yeah, there you go. So I can keep increasing the value if I feel like I should have like more friction in there. It seems pretty good. Anyway, so let's create some more collision. So I'm going to take a sphere that can collide with this thing. All right, and let's increase this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to key this sphere somewhere around 15th keyframe. And we have the Z axis. So I'm going to go to translate Z, right click, key selected. I can go to somewhere like 40 and just pass it through, right click, key selected. So if I play this, you'll notice it's colliding perfectly. So let's quickly go to our bullet solver and let's add the sphere in our collider objects. Middle mouse click and drop it. All right, so let's play. And there you go. So it looks pretty good. I think, yeah, so we have a lot of friction going on, and you'll notice that the entire thing is not exactly moving like it's supposed to be. So I think I'm gonna reduce the amount of friction on both the things here. Let's go to dynamics, and there you go. So let's maybe increase some more, and I'm gonna click on use mass as a density, and let's maybe reduce the amount of mass to maybe like 0.200. Okay, seems good. So you'll notice that the cubes are not that aggressive when they're falling. And if I just go to my sphere and let's say if I cut this and paste it somewhere real close, I shouldn't have created a play blast. And let's quickly paste this. So you'll notice that depending on the speed of your colliding object, the simulation behaves exactly like that. So if you have a collision where it's moving too fast, the mesh will have less time to calculate it rather than having more time. But let's say if I time it somewhere between something like this, you'll have a simulation that works perfectly. So the duration and the timing really matters here. And if you were to, let's say, let's just quickly get rid of the entire animation. So I'm just gonna quickly break connection. I'm gonna bring this in here. Let's quickly go to mesh, and I know we haven't talked about the offset node, but I'm just gonna quickly use it to showcase something. And there you go. So you'll notice that we have something that looks like this. All right, so this was one of the example how you can create multiple colliders with your mesh. All you have to do is just create some colliders inside of your bullet solver and you're good to go. So let's quickly look at the other example which you can do to create something fun with. So let's take a torus. I'm gonna take a radius of maybe like 4 and maybe a section radius of maybe like 1. All right, seems good. And I'm gonna just increase the subdivision to maybe like 80. All right, and maybe 40 on this as well. And let's quickly cut this in half, but I'm just gonna increase section radius to 1.2. All right, so let's go to the front view, click on face, select half of the face and delete. All right, so seems good. So we have a shape that looks like a donut. And if you want to transform this, what we can do is we can go to edge mode and just shift some edges. And if this black thing is pretty much bugging you out, what you can do is create a two-sided lighting, and that will just get rid of this whole black thing. Or what you can also do is you can just extrude the whole poly. But before doing that, I'm just gonna do some adjustment. So I'm gonna just select a single edge, double click on an edge to select it, and you'll notice that we are only moving one edge and we want to create a fall off of this edge. So what we're going to do is click B on your keyboard and you'll have this access to your soft selection brush. And if you hold on B and left click drag, you'll notice that we can transform our brush. So I'm just gonna create a nice fall off and just lower this down. All right. I'm going to do the same with the other end as well. I'm going to increase this, and then you can just select some part of your edges and just pretty much transform them. It's totally up to you. And there you go. So we have a very weird and nice looking shape. And let's quickly extrude this. Hit B to get out of the soft selection and just extrude this. And there you go. So we have a nice looking shape. All right, so I'm just gonna get rid of the history and freeze transform just so we have a very nice object and a clean object to work with. All right, so let's quickly take a sphere and maybe reduce the sphere radius to maybe like 0.8. And also let's make it a little smoother by giving a 40 subdivision and go to mesh. Okay, so in the distribute, I'm gonna choose a type to maybe like a radial, and decrease the radius and switch the axis to Z and X. There you go. And I'm just gonna use the offset node again, and I'm gonna go to top view just so we have a perfect center out object. All right, there you go. So we have something like this, and what I'm gonna do is go to mesh, quickly add a dynamic node, and in our bullet solver I'm gonna add my torus. So when I hit play, you'll have something like this. What you can also do here is if you go to your torus and if you have a rotation like in the y-axis, what you can do is click on your y-axis and go to edit, expression, and we are going to put a very small and simple expression. Just Control C and Control V this, space equals to, and what you can do is time multiplied by 100 and semicolon and hit create. So that will just give us a smooth looking animation like this. All right, and now you'll notice that the objects are not exactly interacting with this sphere, with our torus at all. So what I can do is I'm gonna just quickly select this and let's quickly break the connection, and I'm gonna just zero this out. And let's say these spheres are falling somewhere around like 40. I'm gonna right click, oh sorry, my bad, I've created a play blast by mistake again, and key selected, go to somewhere like 120 and we can just give it a 90 and key selected again. So if I play this now, you'll notice that the dynamics holds up. So basically when the object has interacted with the colliding object, it will perfectly match the whole animation. But if something is interrupting between the collision, it will not adapt it at all. So you have to keep that in mind very carefully. Or what you can do is just catch the whole thing and it might work then. So yeah, pretty interesting. So let's take another example. Let's maybe take a simple sphere. Let's reduce the cap to 0 and maybe hit 100. And let's change the radius to maybe like 6. All right, let's get rid of the cap and extrude the entire cylinder to a size of a container. All right, looks good. What I'm gonna do from here, if you want to just make it seem like a real good cylinder, what you can do is just extrude and have some more subdivision as well, just looking a little nicer. So let's maybe take a sphere and let's maybe reduce the radius to maybe like 0.2 or maybe like 0.4 maybe. And what you can do is go to mesh, click on mesh and attribute editor, and the distribute we're going to take a grid. Maybe let's take a grid of maybe like 10 and 10 and having it 2. And let's increase this. Let's go to top view quickly so we can see this clearly. Hit 4 and let's say since we are using a dynamics, make sure your objects are not intersecting with each other. If they are intersecting, there will be problem in your simulation. It will not behave properly. It will have some error, some kind of maybe something that doesn't go as planned. So make sure there is no intersection between your objects. Anyways, again, I'm taking the offset node. I know we haven't talked about it, but I will be creating a video on it very soon. So we have something like this, and let's quickly go to mesh and dynamics, and we have this falling. Let's go to bullet solver. We don't need our ground, and let's take our container. All right, if it's going too fast, you can just slow the whole video down or rewatch it again, just so it helps again. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going maybe a little faster. Anyway, so if I have this, you'll notice that we have something like this. It looks pretty good. I'm gonna make this 350 again to have more room to play around with. And in this particular simulation, what we are going to be using is our fields. So let's quickly see how we can create those fields. You can right click here to pretty much connect one field. You can right click here, but you'll notice you'll get an error that we don't have any field. So what you can do is simply go to fields and solver and take a field, any field. Let's take a turbulence, bring this up. So we have a turbulence, and if I play this, you'll notice that the turbulence is not having any effect on your simulation. So what you can do is go to your mesh and quickly go to bullet solver and middle mouse click on your turbulence and drop it into your field. And if I play this, now you have turbulence going on. all right, which is pretty weak. So let's quickly make this a bit stronger. Let's set a 25 magnitude and maybe attenuation of 0.6. We can have a noise level of maybe like 2. Let's play this, and there you go. So now it's going pretty crazy. I'm gonna lower this down to maybe 15 and so on. Well, let's say if the turbulence is acting too fast or too quickly, we want the whole turbulence to be hitting afterwards it hits the container. What you can do is just zero this out and go somewhere like, let's see when it's hitting the, all right, so let's count it to 40. Go to 40 and right click, key selected, and let's go here and let's make it 15 and set key. So if I play this, so earlier it's not having any effect of turbulence, and slowly it will start to affect your spheres. So now it will start to move around, right? And maybe since they are inside of the container, we can go for a maybe higher value like a 45, and let's see then. Yeah, there you go. So I think we haven't actually keyed this. Yeah, let me hit 45, set key again. Yeah, so now it's going pretty aggressive. So let's maybe take another field. I'm gonna just delete this field and let's maybe take a field like a vortex. Bring this up, go back, and in the bullet solver I'm gonna put in vortex field. And now you'll notice that we have a very nice vortex going on. That looks pretty good. What you can also do is you can also have multiple fields as well. So if you want to have something like a Newton, a very nice attractor, let's keep it somewhere around here, and let's go to bullet solver, drop it in here, and let it fall down. So now you have a Newton and a vortex going on as well. So let's quickly go to our Newton. Let's make this a little stronger. And there you go. I think we are working on our vortex field. So I'm just gonna default this whole thing out. Go to Newton and make this change. I thought I selected Newton field. And now you have something that looks like this. We can maybe change the Newton field to go a little higher than that. Let's see again. So now you have something that looks like this. Alright, so pretty interesting looking. There are a lot of different variations with what you can do. And let's say if we just get rid of this and go to your mesh. So here what you can do is create a per point adjustment to create different kind of velocities, initial velocities, friction, and so on. What you can also do is you can create a constraint and pretty much to connect them. And the very good thing about constraint in mesh is it'll pretty much give you this visualization of how it's pretty much reacting or behaving on your geometry. So now you'll notice that it's not exactly breaking up, and some of the part of the entire mesh are just holding up. So we are going to be experimenting this in our future videos, but just to give you the idea of how you can use this. And then you have different methods how you can pretty much use this, like what kind of connection mode you have, like if they are touching or if they are near or near to the point, then you'll have this point of collision. And now you'll notice that they are not pretty much moving. Let's maybe change this to offset point or maybe input points. So you'll need an input point for that. But yeah, there are different methods of how you can use this and how they'll be behaving to each other and so on. So there are different methods of what you can do. You can create a constraint, you can create a bounce of that and so on, and you can create a friction of that, maybe change of mass value. So this really does open up a lot of doors into different things, and you can change this type to maybe a spring. I'm gonna get rid of this break connection. And now you'll notice that the point is creating kind of like a spring area, and I'm gonna get rid of this as well. And let's play this, and now you have something that looks like this. All right, so it looks pretty good. I'm gonna create another video for particular this effect only. But feel free to play around with this. You can create sliders and so on to create different kind of things. But yeah, anyway, so I hope this helped with the mesh dynamics. It was pretty much it for this. For the basics part, there's a lot to cover inside of dynamics. It's one of my personal favorite nodes. I always use it whenever I'm creating motion graphics, and this does open up a lot of door for a lot of creativity and a lot of motion graphics. So feel free to dive in, find out more about bullet solver, play around more with fields, play around more with collider objects and your grounds. And if you have problem with your collision or colliding object, you can increase the margin. That will help you with the collision problem. So again, feel free to dive in, have some fun with it, and I'll see you in the next video.